Ever notice someone dragging large black bags through the hospital lobby and wonder who they are? That, my friend, is a medical device rep. Welcome to Device Guys. Your hosts, Brent Lloyd and Jason Doliak, bring 50 years of combined medical sales experience to the table, sharing insights, stories, and a behind-the-scenes look at this fascinating world. Enjoy the conversations.
Hey everybody, I'm Brent, he's Jason, we're the Device Guys. Welcome to the podcast. Jason, how do you do?
I do quite well. How do you do?
I do just fine, thank you for asking.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I tell you, it's been a minute. It
We
has been
took
a
a
minute.
little hiatus. Diego was a little bit upset with us, I think.
Upset with me. I think it was me.
Some scolding.
I got reprimanded. Yeah. It's what it is. It's the way we do this. You know, we shoot early, we shoot late. Sometimes things, we try to keep it out of the way of our jobs, but that's the nature of this beast, is that you go when you're called.
Yeah, what people don't really, I guess it doesn't come off, but there's no windows in here. We're here at like 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we try to get 2 episodes shot.
Knock them out.
And one time we only got one because the ER's calling you
Yeah.
to do that thing you do,
Yeah, go in
that
and help.
high level of service
Right.
that you offer. I think one time it happened to me.
True.
I was the one that it was a Friday.
Yeah, you had multiple cases, multiple resources, people out. You had to be where you got to be.
Had to be where you have to be.
Yeah.
And then most recently we had 2 doctors. We had 2 physicians set to do 2 shoots, and we had to cancel them because you got stuck. You got stuck in.
Yeah, that was on me. That was on me.
Yeah.
I had a flight delayed out of Berlin, so I got stuck overnight in Amsterdam. Which I tell you what, I have never had a missed flight be such a great thing.
Yeah, Amsterdam. I mean, it
I
could be
never-
worse. You could be in like Pocatello or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I could have been in Casper, Wyoming. Sitting
Yeah.
there in the wind. But no, we're in Amsterdam, so we got a nice little hotel.
You were with a customer.
Yeah, great customer.
Yeah.
We had to go tool around Amsterdam, walk around the town. That is a great town. It's beautiful. I
Good
love
food.
it. Good food. People were awesome. It was really a nice little. It was a nice delay. I felt horrible about missing, especially.
Well, that's the thing, is it's all about respecting our customers' time, and they were very gracious in letting us postpone them. We were able to get one of our guys back. You guys might notice that there is we got the clinician tablecloth out.
Clinician tablecloth
today.
It's the blue drape.
It's a blue drape.
Yeah.
That you get the reference.
I do.
I think most people will get this reference, but we didn't. We're going to have to reschedule our other guy because he's now out of town. But we have a big treat today.
We
with
do.
our,
We
with
do
our
have a
guest.
big treat. We have a celebrity.
Kind of a structural heart celebrity, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Should we just, without further ado, should we?
I think we should. Let's do it.
Let's do it. This guy that we have as our guest is he's a well-known structural heart physician, and we're lucky enough to have him here in our little town, Salt Lake City, Utah. He's one of a handful of guys, really, and he's gonna downplay everything, but because he's that guy.
That's
but he's one of on the short list of people who are contacted by industry and by peers when they need a proctor, when they want to do a research trial, when they're vetting new technology. I think even a lot of analysts contact him for his take on things in the structural heart space. He's a good customer of mine. He's a good friend of mine, but probably most importantly, he's a good friend of the podcast.
We're lucky to
He's
have him.
he's an original friend of the podcast. Don Dunn said he was a good friend of the podcast. Then we found out during the interview that he missed your episode he's
How good a friend?
this guy's a good friend of the podcast. Let's bring him out. It's Dr. Brian Whisenant.
Welcome, Brian.
Welcome to the podcast, Brian. How do you do?
Friend Jason, thanks for having me. And I haven't quite caught on to Device Guys grammar, so I am doing fine. But it's a pleasure to be here, and I am an original fan, and it's great to be with you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is a real treat for us. Yeah.
Oh,
First physician guest. I mean, when this thing blows up, you're an answer to a trivia question.
Who's the first? Who's the first guest?
physician guest on the Device Guys podcast?
and what's that worth to me?
Well, we'll find
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
That's to be determined.
Diego will tell us. Talk to us in 1 year.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, it's an honor.
I'm so happy that you're here. I think this is great. I've got, you and I have a lot of history together. And
A lot of years, don't we?
A lot of years. Why don't you tell people kind of your path to getting here? Tell us what you do now, real quick, and then talk a little bit about what brought you here and how you got here.
I always tell people what I do is pretty much whatever Brent tells me to do. And it's never steered me
Easy.
wrong.
This guy is
right?
so coachable.
Right?
I tell
Yeah.
you what.
All right. That's how you get a nice introduction like you gave me,
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
No, I mean, I do, my job is, I'm fortunate to have been in a good location with good field with growing in structural heart. And so my work is mostly valves and some other structural heart procedures, but I'm an interventional cardiologist and with a focus on valve and structural heart disease. I'm the medical director of valve and structural heart disease at Intermountain Medical Center. And we've been working together since I moved to Utah in 2000, 25 years ago.
2000. I was selling Vasoseal.
Yeah.
And you
I
came to the
remember.
University of Utah.
Yeah.
You were at UCSF.
I was
Or no,
at
UCSD.
I was at UCSD. You're amazing keeping track of that. But no, it's great. And we've just had this wonderful ride on doing TAVRs together and taking care of patients together, and that's really what's been awesome.
It's been so terrific. I remember when you first got here, and you end up moving over to LDS Hospital from the university. You were what at the U for 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years, and you went over and joined the group. It was now later became Intermountain Medical Center, but it was at LDS Hospital. And I remember some of the nurses and techs talking about, Brian, when you first got there, you give your cell phone number to patients. They were astonished.
That's a strong move.
It's a strong move.
Yeah.
Do you still do that?
I do that a lot, actually. Yeah.
So, Jason, I got to tell
That
you.
is white glove right there.
It's white glove. I was in his office, I don't know, a week or two ago, and you were on the phone. You called me in your office to look at something with you, and then you answered. You took a phone call, and I sat there for like 30 minutes, and he's talking to a patient. And I commented after, I was so impressed with how patient you were, because
Wait. Who's patient? The guy who's waiting 30 minutes for me to talk to a patient. So thank you for doing that, because that speaks more about you than it does
that
about
is
me.
what we do.
Exactly.
That is in the job description. You're going to wait.
And you know what, though? I don't take that for granted. And you guys are awesome that way, is that you are there to support us. And Brent, you've just been a great partner for me, and that's an example. And I don't take that for granted at all.
Well, you're embarrassing me, Brian. That's a nice compliment. I feel like when you started the TAVR program, it was at Intermountain Medical Center. It was one of the, you had been involved in like appendage closure, right? But TAVR came to market before that did. Talk a little bit about what, we've talked about TAVR on the show. People should know what it is, but we're replacing the aortic valve with a catheter. Why don't you talk about how, the whole lead up to that, like the studies and the things that you were doing?
Yeah, so we started doing left atrial appendage closure in 2005. In fact, I kind of brought that over from the University of Utah when I came to LDS and got going on that. We did our first MitraClip for repairing the mitral valve with a catheter in 2007. And then we were invited to be part of the partner trial, which was the initial trial of transcatheter aortic valve replacement, or TAVR, and did our first one in 2009. It was a different procedure then than it is now. These were big devices. We didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't have CT measurements for sizing. We had a lot of complications.
Talk about the patients. What type of patients were they?
There were two trials that were done simultaneously. We called them Partner Cohort A and Partner Cohort B. Partner Cohort B were patients where the surgeon felt like they could not operate on them, and they were randomized to medical therapy versus device. And we all were saying the patients with device did so much better. It was obvious to us the benefits of TAVR then, and it was so hard to randomize patients. It's like we're randomizing them to life or death. And that was really what we knew was happening. And in fact, when the results came out, we saw this dramatic 20% survival advantage doing the procedure very quickly compared to medical therapy, where patients just died so aggressively. So it was just a earth-changing experience to be involved in that and see the benefits to patients. And then we had these very high-risk patients who were randomized against surgery. And once again, we saw the benefits of a less invasive procedure for these elderly patients. And these benefits were even with rudimentary valves compared to what we have now and limited experience. But I think we've all recognized that one of the big advantages and tremendous learnings of TAVR was how it brought together the heart teams. And this is where I had a tremendous partner as I started doing this, and a surgeon named Kent Jones. Mm-hmm. And Kent was such a hero. Where
legend.
He was a legend, and he is a legend, and a friend, and a gentleman, and most of all, just a patient's doctor who was always trying to do the right thing and take care of patients and set a tone for our institution about bringing a team together to do the right thing.
We should get KJ on.
Right?
That would be a good. That'd be a
good episode.
He would be awesome.
For sure.
Yeah.
And talk a little baseball.
Talk a little baseball.
Right?
All the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that would be great.
Yeah.
Speaking of silky tones, Kent Jones's voice, man. That guy,
right?
That guy's got that deep, silky tone.
Maybe we should have him do an intro for us instead of Mike Whitlock.
Oh, don't
Can
hang,
you hear that?
Don't hang out, Mike
Right?
Whitlock. So we talk about these valves, and I don't know that everyone really knows about what are we treating, like the disease of aortic stenosis. How does that progress? I mean, and I'm really asking for me because I'm in the pacing world. I basically have worked tangentially next to you for the last 2 decades. But as far as aortic stenosis, I mean, help me understand, or help the population understand, kind of how does this progression happen?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to a Dr. Brownwald, who was a legend and publishing in the 1960s, showing how patients get worse somewhat slowly, and then they fall off a cliff where they get into real trouble, and it's a very fatal progression as if patients are not treated for their aortic stenosis. So, and we have more and more evidence of the benefits of treating aortic stenosis in patients, so it's powerful intervention.
Is the pathophysiology of that aortic stenosis development, is it just calcification? Is it calcification over time? Is it afterload? Is it preload? What are we seeing that actually, it leads to this stenosis?
Yeah, aortic valves become calcified and rigid and don't open, and that puts a strain on the left ventricle, and over time the ventricle fails, and then patients really die with florid heart failure in a terrible way.
Heart valve failure leads to heart failure. Jason.
There you go.
Yeah, there you
That
go.
sounds-
You've said that
that
before.
sounds like a-
That was maybe not the first time you
I
said
mean,
that.
I like valve attack better, but
Valve
heart valve failure is pretty scary
Pretty good.
too.
No.
Well, how much of this can be managed with lifestyle and education and just moving around? As far as like as I think about my parents getting older, me getting older, I mean, and how do we go about avoiding something like this, or is it kind of a predisposition of time and
Yeah, we don't know risk factors for aortic stenosis very well. There certainly are metabolic factors like everything else that seem to contribute, and we do see more AS with diabetes, but those associations are fairly weak. And some of it is clearly congenital. Patients who are born with a two-cusp or bicuspid aortic valve certainly are predisposed towards earlier aortic valve failure, either aortic stenosis or leaking valves. And most of the progression, I mean, you think about these valves that open with every heartbeat for 70 times a minute for 80 years. That's a lot of opening and closing, right? And it's amazing that they last as long as they do. And we don't quite understand why they wear out. And lifestyle modification, unfortunately, is not very preventative.
right?
Let's talk a little bit about like the early days and then and industry's role. I mean, this show's about device, and what's industry's role, and how did you view us in commercializing this product, and how did you what value did you put on us? How did you rely on us? Like how did you see the role of industry in the launch of the therapy?
I think it was interesting here in that Edwards was a surgical heart valve company who now was bringing in a product to compete with their bread and butter product. And so that put them into a uniquely powerful position of building these teams that I mentioned, of trying to do the right things for patients and bringing in all of the rigor and expertise of the surgeons that they knew so well. And this is where Larry Wood and Edwards, the whole team and the surgeons who were involved, and this is Craig Smith and Michael Mack, who are the real leaders working with Marty Leon in the early partner trial, who had this vision saying, we're going to put patients first and figure out how to do the right thing, and bringing together teams of surgeons and cardiologists under the leadership of Edwards. And Edwards brought together this tremendous rigor of creating a surgical-like standard to make sure that outcomes were good and putting patients first. And I give Edwards a ton of credit in how they built that program, and I think I'm not alone with that. This is I'm just copying what everyone else is saying, and how the whole field owes Edwards a certain debt for building this type of camaraderie and patient first attitude.
Right. This is the first time that ever happened, where you guys were in the room together.
Absolutely.
It was,
And it's something that's carried on until today. And the surgeons who I work with are my good friends and colleagues, and we don't look at each other as rivals or competitors anymore. We are partners in every way. It's awesome.
The team approach that has come about from this therapy, I think, is really important for patients. And that to me seems like you're getting the collaborative approach of many specialties to get the best outcome. And that does seem like a great path forward for medicine in general.
Not only is it great for patients, which is most important, and it is, but it's also just a great place to work, right? Mm-hmm. If we go to work and we enjoy the people we work with, how much more rewarding is that than if we are competing with each other? And
right.
That's part of why I love my job, is I really enjoy working with my colleagues there.
That's a good lead into this. Like I talked about going down this path with you when you came in, but here on the Wasatch Front in Utah in general, it's such a collegial atmosphere, right? There's the university, there's St. Mark's Hospital, there's a couple of other Intermountain hospitals, but it doesn't seem so competitive. It seems more like everybody's trying to do the right thing for the patient. I remember I got you to a dinner at one of the TCTs with Fred Welt from the University of Utah, and I think Eric from McKetty and Vompsy from St. Mark's was there. And there's not this competition. There's not this competitive attitude. It's more collegial here. And I think the Wasatch Front owes a lot of that to you, the way you kind of launched TAVR at your site and the way you kind of helped people. You were proctoring sites that you would consider competitive to your hospital, all in the interest of growing the therapy and getting it to patients in a way that it was safe and they had access to the therapy, which I think is awesome.
Well, you're generous to give me credit. I'm not sure if that's fair, but I'm fortunate to work with really great colleagues in this city, and I very much enjoy working with them. And Anwar also,
Dr. Tandar, yes,
Dr. Tandar, and Vompsy, we want our patients to receive great care wherever they go, right? And I think everyone in this city recognizes that, and they refer patients to me. I refer patients to them, and it's nice that we have a patient-first attitude. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Do you guys take the approach of finding the guy that's best for the job at hand? Finding the guy that has the most skill, or feel like you can have the best outcome?
I think that's a fundamental, important rule of medicine, right? Is that we always try and put patients first, and I never want to do a procedure if someone else can do it better than me. Bob Gray, for example, at Primary, is a lot better at doing pulmonic valve replacement than I am, and it was quick and easy for me to involve Bob and refer the pulmonics to him because he does a better job, and I would never want a patient to feel like they were coming to a second physician who wasn't as good.
Right.
And last week he came over and helped me do a procedure. I called him on the phone for advice. He said, "Are you doing that now?" I said, "I'll be right there," and I hopped in an Uber and came over.
He was in an Uber. He rode his bike to work that day.
Right.
He told me.
He popped in an Uber and
That's
came over and helped me do it. And how is that for collaboration,
So cool.
right?
That's
is
a
that the
great
best
community.
ever, right? Amazing.
Let's go back to, we're curious about how you deal with industry. Like now, so you talked about early commercialization, you talked about the research trials, but fast forward now, this procedure, you don't need a rep in the room. I mean, we're in the room, but I'm not going to tell you anything, right?
You do tell me stuff, though, for sure.
Well, I don't know.
You help me.
It's such a streamlined, we're all good at it, and the equipment is so much better, and now there's a lot of reps. Right, back in the day, there was me and Mandy, right? And now I've got 2 clinicals. There's a couple other valve companies that have clinicals. You've got Watchman, you've got Pascal, you've got MitraClip. That's a lot of reps. So talk about how a rep can differentiate himself, herself, in your eyes. This is a roadmap. It's an opportunity for you, Brian. It's a roadmap.
Now, first, I am a friend of the pod, and I'm going to prove it here because I kind of feel like you guys are opening up your playbook to us just a little bit and understanding, like I remember, was it your first pod when you guys were talking about role playing or something?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know you guys role played.
Oh, man.
I mean, that was like a big disclosure for me, and it
Really?
explained a lot. It explained a lot. Like Lloyd's always making shit up about stuff that he accuses me of doing. And
The shortest memory.
no, now it all makes sense. I think it's because it's his role play.
He's
And
probably
and he's
workshopping.
probably thinking that I actually did it when I didn't.
I'm gaslighting
You're
you.
gaslighting
Whiz.
me, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's what happened
Total
in role
gaslight.
playing the week before.
The role
But-
play is the worst thing. If they tell you we're going to role play, the collective groan in the room it's the worst.
It's the worst.
It's the worst.
So anyway, I can't imagine. So I'm kind of now thinking about every rep who comes in the room. Like, I wonder how their role play went before they did it.
Well, you should ask him. Be like, hey,
Did you role play this?
Have you role played this before?
because I tell you what, I'm going to need you to be on point here.
Right?
Don't waste my time.
How did this go in role play?
Why don't you say this to them? Give me your 3-minute scrub sink presentation.
Yeah.
That's what they
Right.
do. Yeah, they do stuff like that.
No, okay, back to your
Dr.
question.
Dr. Whisenant, do you have a minute for me? Listen, I've got
Can
time
I make
for,
a suggestion?
I've got time for an elevator pitch and go.
Right? No, back to your question. I mean, I work with a ton of reps, and we're not that far removed from COVID. It's kind of funny how I kind of think back to the COVID era, where these reps would come in, and I'd worked with them for like 2 years, and I'd never seen them without a mask on.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Try and build a relationship with the doc when you don't get it. Like, it's like. I don't know. Even today, it's like I had to call someone and say, "Hey, who's the rep for this other competitor company?" I can't quite remember. 'Cause, I mean, at some point, I guess for me, we learn to build relationships with reps who clearly want to do the right thing for patients, and they're our partners. And when I see it takes a little while before we build a rapport, and I think people who are coming into a room have to respect that and know that it takes a little while until we learn to work together and let it go a little bit slowly sometimes. But the most important thing is that they're there to take care of patients, and that's what we're all there to do together. And when I see patients, reps who are committed to that, I appreciate it and respect them and are anxious to engage with them as partners.
Are there any do-nots?
Oh, there are tons.
Let's go.
What are they?
Top
What-
five do-nots.
Yeah, what are the do-nots? You're a device rep. You're going to go in and support a case with Brian Whisenant. You're probably already super intimidated that you're going to go see.
No, probably not. You've probably already role played this a lot, and someone's told you.
See,
you
here
gotta
we go. This
role
role
play
play, that really struck a chord. I tell you what.
Okay, Brent Lloyd has told you how Whisenant is going to screw up this and this and this, because this is anyway.
Listen, I remember, this is funny, Jason. My boss came in, and it was the first time she'd ever actually met. No, she'd met you, but it was a pinch. She had to support a case, and so I said, "How'd the case go?" And she said, "Well, we had to start over. He lost wire position." And I was like, "What?" That's like TAVR 101. And the first time, Jenny, she's like, "This is Brian Whisenant?"
And this is my buddy Brent Lloyd, who reminds me of everything I've ever done like this, and brings it up.
I can't help it.
You
Brian.
know, and
It's just
there's
too good.
just like going to be a whole podcast of
Well,
Whisenant screw ups, losing wire, everything else. Anyway, no, it's I actually remember that case. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, the solution is take out the valve and just do it again.
And do it again.
Do it again.
Right.
That's okay.
It's the best. Nothing can't be undone, for the most part.
So can I jump back a few decades? And this is one thing that I'm super interested in all the physicians that I've gotten to know really well is your training process. Like when you were in medical school, as you were going through residency and fellowship, the decisions that led you toward where you are today. Did you know you were going to be an interventional cardiologist? Did you have that sight set in mind, or was it? I've met so many physicians that it was a series of indecisions, and they come to a fork in the road, and they chose one or the other. and ended up in EP or ended up in structural heart or ended up in interventional cardiology. How'd that work for you?
I'm still trying to decide what I want to do in my career.
You see, I love that answer.
Your podcast.
Right?
You do a
You
podcast
think there's
guest.
a job for me here? I know, right? No, I mean, I say that truly, that I went into internal medicine out of med school because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that kept pathways open. I was a medicine resident at Beth Israel in Boston, and this was an era of all kinds of exciting things happening in cardiology. BI was doing stents. They were doing thrombolytic trials. They were doing primary angioplasty. These were the early statin trials. These were the first transesophageal echoes to look at cardioversion for AFib. I mean, all the stuff that was happening. It was just such an exciting place to be. It made it an easy decision to go into cardiology and interventional in particular, because that's what was so exciting there. I was fortunate to really be in a dynamic, powerful cardiology training program at Beth Israel. And then from there, I actually did my cardiology fellowship at UCSF, which was also just a bunch of amazing mentors and leaders there in that field. And then I went back to Beth Israel and did some more training. So I had a lot of role models and exciting people who really helped me along. Fortunate.
Do you have any stories from training that stick out? I think people would find it fascinating, like the training of a doctor. Because you don't know, unless you work with doctors, unless you are a doctor or you're related to a doctor.
You just don't
it's
know.
It's hard to know. Like, your patients have no idea what your training was like. Do you have any cool stories you want to relate?
Well, it's funny. So yesterday was Father's Day, and I was at my mother's home, and my brothers were there, and my brother is an oncologist, and my daughter is actually starting medical school July 7th, so a couple weeks from now.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
That's cool.
My brother's daughter is going to be shadowing me on Wednesday because she's getting ready to apply to med school. She's pre-med. And so we're there kind of, hanging out together, and I was talking about how awesome it is going to med school and all the things that happen there, and how exciting it is, and so my brother's Jonathan, and Jonathan and I were talking about how we both still remember so many of our first patients who we met as med students, and we were telling stories. So do I have stories? Well, yeah, I was telling this story yesterday. So the story I told yesterday was how I was a brand new med student in New York. I went to Columbia Med School, and we had this vascular patient and who was just having all this terrible stuff done, and they were oversewing his aorta with huge torso amputation, terrible case, just awful. And as a med student, my job is to hold a retractor so the surgeons can operate. And the surgeon's going crazy trying to save this man's life and doing all this stuff, and the patient's had 50 units of blood transfusions. And this is in the height of the AIDS pandemic. Oh. And how I'm holding a retractor, and this surgeon throws a knife and it just sticks in my arm. He's not throwing it at me, he's throwing it onto the tray. Yeah. But I'm holding the retractor and it just sticks there and it's hanging there bouncing. And I just stood there and took it out and put it down.
We'll deal with that in a minute.
And I waited till the end of the case, and
oh my gosh.
And just how, there are all these, that's not a very nice story, but there are a lot.
It's the reality of what happens.
But it's the reality of what happens. And just crazy that as we're thinking about our daughters going into medicine, how they're going to be exposed to this world, how it really is pretty awesome, and how exciting it is. And the memories that come with that.
One of the things that always blows me away is the amount of hours that fellows work, and the amount of time that's put on them, and just the exhaustion and the strain. Do you feel like that's changing? It's getting better, or is that a good thing for physician training? Because I think it definitely it's an exercise of the mind, and it definitely toughens you. What do you think about that?
Oh, fortunately, it's changed. It was the program that we went through when we were training, I think, was too much, and I got married right as I was graduating from med school, and I'd been dating my wife long distance, where I was in New York and she was in Salt Lake, and then we moved to Boston together, as we got married, and she didn't really realize that on-call meant I slept in the hospital every third night for a year. She's like, well, you didn't tell me that. That wasn't part of the prenup.
So bait and switch.
Yeah, I mean, that's really how she felt. And no, those training days were super hard. And they were awesome. We learned a lot, but it's nice that it's hopefully not.
That's not the case today.
I don't think it's as bad as it's not quite like that.
Yeah.
It's still hard. Absolutely. It's going to be hard. And it's a lot. And it has to be. There has to be a certain amount of ownership that comes with that. And I don't want to sound too much like the old school doc. I think
like back in uphill both ways.
back in the hero days, But it's a privilege, to go through all of that. So for sure.
Do you mind if I tell Jason a story about a cool thing about you?
Is it true? Or is it role play and you made it up?
No, this is true. This is true. We had the opportunity in 2017 to do live cases for TCT. Do you remember that day?
I do remember.
It was so much fun. Like, this is the biggest cardiology meeting there is, like the HRS of cardiology.
For the EP world, yes.
Yeah. And we had 4 cases that day. I think we had a valve and valve, we had a mitral valve and valve, which at the time was kind of new, transeptal approach to replacing a mitral valve. And I think you'd had, I don't know what else you had. You did a fracture first, there was some other stuff. Anyway.
Balloon mitral valvuloplasty, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, that's right. But we can only hear him, right? Because he's got the headset on, and he's working.
Is this a telecast or
It's a telecast. So live, they're showing what he's doing. So it was in Denver. In Denver, people are in this big room and they're seeing the 4 screen. They're seeing hemo and echo, and then they're seeing Brian. But no one else in the room can hear what's going on. And they're doing this valve and the people, the panel that's kind of like narrating the case. They want to really talk about positioning the valve and all that. And the thing about Brian is he works pretty fast.
Yeah.
And you had the valve in, they before they even were out past doing the transeptal. You remember this?
Not really.
Oh, it's so funny. So I go to Denver later that day, and because TCT and Brian was there too, and they're like, I didn't talk to anybody that wasn't like, man, that guy's fast.
Well, that probably tells you more about my insecurity with the venue and what I was doing than anything. And I probably need to slow down a little bit for.
Oh no, I thought you always make the right decision. It was super fun to be part of and to watch that go down. It was great.
It takes a little practice to learn how to do live cases with.
That's gotta be nerve-wracking.
With the team, they said they might let us do it again. So. Keep your calendar open for October this year.
Outstanding.
That sounds pretty good.
You got something?
Well, I was just saying, what do you see as the next kind of frontier and problems that are presenting in this patient population and possible fixes? I mean, what do you think about that? Or is it just is it the waves of problems come, the disease process kind of present themselves, or is it kind of stayed in one lane? I mean, how do you see the future?
Well, things are moving for sure, and I mean, TAVR is an example. There's a Utah company here called Foldax that just got approval in India with their polymer-based valve, and I mean, that's pretty exciting to think about a valve that's super thin, potentially infinitely durable material. That's a polymer-based that doesn't require the type of anticoagulation that a mechanical valve has. We're getting smaller profile, different deliverability. I feel like we've seen some big failures with TAVR, and it shows how difficult it is to iterate and make things better. But there's a lot that's happening, and there's a lot that's happening on the mitral, the tricuspid, and technology just keeps getting better. So I think that it's still a super exciting time about where we are in transcatheter.
Your timing was perfect, right? To enter into the structural space.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
It sure seems like it. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm super lucky. Mm-hmm. It's been such a great ride.
Been awesome.
And it's good that you're good at it.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but thank you.
That's the reputation I hear.
Pay people lots of money to say that, so don't believe them.
Well, let's wrap it up. Should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us. I've worked tangentially with you, kind of alongside you for the, my career, and it's been awesome to watch. Even though you and I, Never done a pacemaker together. I always come in and just make adjustments when you're about to do something.
I think you've taken care of my complications and put pacemakers in my patients when I've knocked out their conduction system. So
That's only
Thank
when you
you
use one of those other valves.
Yeah, right.
I've done that a time or two. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know what? You're a friend of the podcast. We're going to have you back because look at this list. I didn't even get.
You didn't touch it.
There's so much. There's so much that we got to still get to. So will you come back?
Love to be back. This is awesome. Thank you.
I love it. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. You had a full day at the hospital today, right? And
We did a case together.
We did a case
We
together.
did a good TAVR today, and
Yeah.
it went well, and had some other cases. Good.
No, it's we really appreciate your time. Thanks for being a friend of the podcast, and we'll see you again soon on the pod. And you guys, we owe you a huge debt of gratitude. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching.
Yes, sir. You see someone out there without a smile on their face, you give them one of yours.